And that second part will be inviting a panel of speakers who will be responding to some specific questions, and I will also be moderating that session. After that, we have the closing remark. So on that note, I welcome you to this webinar, and I would like to say that I will begin by introducing two very important individuals who will give us a welcoming address and opening remark from the two principal organizations that I have mentioned earlier, the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, and then of course, the MasterCard Foundation. I'll call on the Acting Executive Director of PASGA, who will be the individual to welcome everyone formally, and also to give a welcome address on behalf of the organization. And the Acting Executive Director of PASGA is no other person than Pauline Nginwa, who is already set to provide a warm welcome with a huge and big hug to everyone who is here. Now, Nginwa is not just the Acting Director of PASGA. She provides leadership and strategic management for the organization. And she's someone who has very strong background in higher education and educational technology. She has published in this area in very many peer-reviewed journals, and you provide very clear direction to the activities of PASGA as well as this project. So I'll call on Pauline Nginwa to give his welcome address. But before I do that, I would like to introduce somebody who is going to speak immediately after her, who is also the Director, Research System Strengthening and Knowledge Mobilization of the MasterCard Foundation. Is my friend, and we've worked together from the PASGA days. And he is no other person than a professor of development communication from the University of Ibadan, which is where I also come from. He's currently at PASGA, and he's the Director of Research System Strengthening and Knowledge Mobilization, as I said before. At the MasterCard Foundation, he coordinates the addition and execution of interventions aimed at accompanying the career growth of African young researchers and researchers from indigenous communities living across Canada. Youth is cherished hope. Youth is an opportunity for growth, and youthhood is marked by dreams, big dreams for society. Energy, strength, creativity define the youth in the contemporary world. And there's no other segment that is of society that is so endowed as the youth in the world as we know it today. We look forward to a great future because we have our youth. On that note, I'll call on Pauline Nginwa to give a welcome address and also an opening remark. Please, Pauline, when you are done, just call on Professor Ejeboki to take over from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my colleague, Professor Remy, for those very remarkable introduction remarks. I want to first of all extend our appreciation and warm welcome to every one of you, and to our esteemed partners at the MasterCard Foundation, who are led by Director, Research System Strengthening and Knowledge Mobilization, Professor Ayobami Ojebudi. Fellow participants, fellow researchers, it gives me great honor to be part of this webinar and to deliver my opening remarks on behalf of the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. We call ourselves PASGA, which is the short form of that long name, the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. In the past few years, we have been very intentional about having a focus on youth as one of our priority areas. This is important to us because Africa, as we know, is considered a youthful continent with about 60% of its population being people below 35 years. This notwithstanding, we note that youth are faced by numerous challenges and precarity, such as underemployment, unemployment, and social exclusion. This is compounded by the rapidly changing work environment and socioeconomic environmental shocks. For example, the recent COVID-19 pandemic amplified challenges of unemployment, but also it presented important insights of coping strategies. And we observed that youth were able to present very interesting coping strategies that as will be disseminated in this webinar. We note that there has been numerous policy interventions and programs towards addressing some of these challenges, especially with youth and unemployment. But we also note that this problem continue to be presented. We also note that issues of informality arise. Data from ILO shows that, for example, 13.5% of youth aged between 15 and 24 years remain unemployed, and about 95% of these people are employed in informal settings. It is against this backdrop that with support and in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, under its auspicious strategy to provide jobs for over 30 million young people by 2030, that we at PASGA embarked on a project that we call the Africa Youth Aspirations and Resilience. This was launched in 2021 at the height of COVID-19 pandemic. And the aim was to explore and understand the aspirations, resilience, adaptability of young women and men in Africa, as well as their perspectives on dignified and fulfilling work as effort to understand best actions to respond to the youth unemployment challenge. The project covered 7 African countries, including Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal. Across these countries, we have worked with a dedicated team of young researchers and research mentees whose work has all contributed to the outcomes that will be presented and discussed in this webinar. As we'll come out in the various presentations, there are certain peculiarities about our approach and some of the insights that have emerged out of this research work. For example, we worked with the youth to research youth. This process was very important to us because it produced a vibrant team of young research mentees that have since gained confidence and graduated to become competent researchers as a result of working very closely with senior researchers. We were very intentional. We paired them with senior researchers as PI. And in the process, they have emerged to be very good researchers, very confident researchers. Secondly, it has become more evident that voices of young women and men matter in providing insights into means of closing the youth employment gap. Their perceptions of what counts as dignified and fulfilling work, the resilience strategies, the aspirations, and what they consider as constraints to achieving these aspirations all add up as important evidence that should be harnessed to inform better policy interventions and initiatives of governments and development partners. We have packaged this in policy briefs that will be used to engage with the policymakers. I would like to briefly highlight some of the significant milestones achieved so far. We have set up Utafiti Sera houses in each of the countries. This is our platform for research policy engagement, where we harness communities of practice of researchers and policymakers to influence policy uptake of existing and emerging knowledge. We have also developed a synthesis report that is based on the initial data that was collected from Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, and Senegal that will be made available. And we have produced a technical briefing document. We've also produced policy briefs. Before I end my remarks, I would like to introduce PASGA to those who do not know our work or are familiar with our work. PASGA represents Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. This is an independent, non-partisan, Pan-African, not-for-profit organization that was established in 2011 with headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya. We currently engage in over 26 African countries, and we work to enhance research and training excellence in governance and public policy that contributes to the well-being of women and men of Africa. We work in partnership with individual academics and researchers, higher education institutions, research think tanks, the civil society organizations, business and policy communities, both within the region and internationally. We do this to support the production and dissemination of policy relevant research, design and deliver suites of short professional development courses for researchers and policy actors, and we facilitate development of collaborative higher education programs. We envision a vibrant African social science community that is addressing the continent's public policy issues. Our mission is to enhance research excellence for governance and public policy in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop here and wish you a very engaging webinar. We look forward to very engaging and fruitful outcomes of this webinar. It is now my privilege and honor to introduce somebody I have known over a period of time, somebody who has become a brother to me, a senior academic, somebody I look up to for advice and for guidance in matters to do with public policy and governance, and indeed research, Professor Ajebodi. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pauline Gimwa. My name is Ayo Ajebodi, and as earlier introduced, I am the Director of Research System Strengthening and Knowledge Mobilization at the MasterCard Foundation. It is indeed a privilege for me today to stand here on behalf of the MasterCard Foundation to give the welcome address and some kind of keynote address. The study we have gathered here today to discuss, to listen to its presentation is in fact a very significant one for us at the foundation. I'll tell you why. About a year ago, a friend was taking me through a small Central African city, and we stopped by a big signpost, and he pointed at the signpost and said, that's your brother. And I looked at it, and then he said, we like him a lot in our country. He then went on to tell me a lot about this brother of mine, so-called brother of mine, how wealthy he was, and how famous he was, and how he often broke the internet as a result of his fame and activities, and so on. And I told him, you call this man my brother, but you know a lot more about him than I do. But there is something he didn't know about this brother of mine, and that was this man was the child of parents who were both lawyers and who wanted him to be a lawyer. In fact, some say he was forced to become a lawyer, and he did become a lawyer. But soon after that, his passion bore out, and he became one of the most famous musicians on the continent. His name is Folarin Falana, popularly known as Falz. The story of Falz illustrates one of our key non-negotiable fundamentals in the foundation, the MasterCard Foundation, which is the need for us to listen to young people when it comes to supporting them or enabling them to find dignified and fulfilling job opportunities. Only they, we believe, only young people could decide what is dignified and fulfilling. Only young people could describe what their aspirations are. Only they could tell us how their daily experiences are shaping up these aspirations. Yes, at the Mastercard Foundation, we have set for ourselves an ambitious goal of enabling 30 million young people to access dignified and fulfilling job opportunities by the year 2030. 70% of these 30 million young people would be women. Today, we have 2,259 days left for us to move these 30 million young people from wherever they are into dignified and fulfilling job opportunities. And so it looks big, and the time seems to be running faster than we would wish it to run. Yet, there are things we will not compromise, even if we are in a hurry to beat our goals. And that is the need to listen. To make our goals realistic, we are working in 7 countries as listed by the Executive Director of PASGA. We are in Rwanda, Uganda, Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, and the WAEMU countries. We also have significant presence in other countries under a program we call the Pan-African program. We are working in the area of education, financial inclusion in the markets, agriculture, technology, especially digital technology. At the research and learning function where I am, we support the work of the Mastercard Foundation in 2 ways. One is by providing and supporting research that shed light on the context in which we work, ideas and thoughts and policies and things like that that influence youth employment. The other is to also turn research into a space for creating employment for young people. And that was why we set up this research, or we chose to support this research by the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. We want to fully understand how young people define dignified and fulfilling job. We want to understand what their career aspirations are. And we want to hear it from their own mouth, not from the mouth of somebody speaking on their behalf. How we did this and what went into it are the details that I will leave for this able research team and highly qualified set of researchers to discuss. But permit me to say that the best of research in this space is of little or no consequence unless it is adapted and used by policy actors. It is our hope that at the end of today's interactions, each of us represented here will have identified 1 or 2 ways by which we can make use of this research. This conversation that we are starting today should not end here. I want to close by thanking our partner, the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, for assembling a team of highly competent and experienced researchers who have diligently prosecuted this research work up to this process. Importantly, I want to thank them for deploying this process to also equip and strengthen a great cohort of young research associates and early career researchers in ways that will greatly get them ready for dignified and fulfilling employment in the research sector. This is the kind of thing we continue to encourage and to look up to. Again, I say welcome, and let us participate as actively as needed. Thank you.
Yeah, please, let's give them both a round of applause. This has been a very good welcome. I want to say August welcome, but this is October. So it's October welcome to everyone from both the Executive Director of PASGA and the Director from the Mastercard Foundation, Professor Ojebode. We are moving to the point where we will look at what has come out of the research that has been conducted. And as Pauline said, we are talking about youth, and the research were conducted by the youth themselves. We want to hear their voices. The youth is not just a period of enthusiasm and courage, it's also a period where people are voiceful, to use that expression. To speak to the project right now, are two very energetic and talented young people. The first is Joel Otieno, who is a program officer at the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. He has been the coordinator of the project, and is in a good position to tell us a great deal about what the project is about. Supporting him to speak to the project will be Rachel Makuka, who has also been part of the project. She's a lecturer at the Technical University of Kenya, specializing in political economy, governance, and development politics. Now, both of them would have 20 minutes to speak, and I look forward to learning from the results and findings from the research. So I'll call first on Rachel to open the floor, after which Joel will join.
Thank you, Prof. Remy. Joel is going to start us off, and then I'm going to come in. Joel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Remy, for the introduction, and thank you, Rachel, for for working with me across to present these findings. We want to also extend a warm welcome to everyone who has joined this webinar, and also to appreciate you for sparing time to be with us. As has been talked about, PASGA has been implementing the Africa Youth Aspirations and Resilience Research Project since September 2021. And we are grateful to present to you some of the outcomes of this work, and to begin the interaction with everyone else, to begin sharing some of the findings and insights and lessons that we see from this work. Our presentation today is entitled From Waithood to Hustling, African Youth's Quest for Dignified and Fulfilling Work. In this presentation, I am supported, and we am co-presenting with Rachel Makoha, who is part of our staff at PASGA. So, in terms of contextual background, where we came from and why we did this work, all of us understand that the youth are the majority in the continent, and statistics show that over 70% of Africa's population today is made up of those below the age of 35. Of course, this huge population has been described in varying terms. Some refer to it as a boon, others consider it as a bane. However, we wanted to understand, with this increasing youth population, how can they be tapped in to maximize their potential, but also to contribute to enhancing opportunities for employment. So the other contextual background that we had is the inadequate opportunities for youth in the labor market. Of course, out of the population, the youth population, which is representing 27% of Africa's total population, 12.7% remain in unemployment. Of course, that is not counting the thousands or majority who are employed in informal sector and who remain unemployed. We also sought to know or to hear, given the need to listen to youth voices in informing interventions and policies and programs. So because of these three-pronged reasons, we set up this project to investigate and explore youth aspirations, resilience, and adaptability, and more specifically, to understand their perspectives on dignified and fulfilling work. Our research aims involve to explore young women and men's aspirations and motivations. Of course, that can also be understood as what are their future goals. Understand perspectives of youth on dignified and fulfilling work with an interest in gaining, in approaching towards defining youth dignified and fulfilling work based on youth perspectives. We also sought to identify constraints to youth access to dignified and fulfilling work and map young women and men's resilience and adaptability strategies and capacities. And lastly, proffer programmatic and policy recommendations to respond to the youth needs. What was our methodology in approaching this work and in trying designing this body of research, which is also both a research and uptake project? We anchored the work on Pasge's Utafiti Sera approach, which is a framework of encouraging interaction and participation and engaging different stakeholders. And in this case, young people between the age of 18 to 35 were at the center of our work. In setting up the Utafiti Sera houses, we focused on bringing on board young people, not only to drive the process and drive the research process, but also to contribute in design, contribute in the implementation, and contribute in the interpretation and analysis of evidence. And that leads me to the second aspect of our methodology, which involves co-creation and putting young people, young women and men at the center of our work. The research methodology approach was a mixed methods design across 7 countries. And if you look at the right side of the screen, we have the sampling there with the countries included. And so we did a cross-sectional survey reaching up to 11,662 respondents who participated in the survey across the 7 countries, that is Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Kenya. We also conducted in-depth interviews, about 172 of them, and focus group discussions, and held 6 youth panels that involved speaking and having in-depth conversations with young people to understand their views. Lastly, we undertook a political economy analysis to understand gaps in policies, but also to understand the nature and the landscape of youth intervention programs. I want to invite my colleague to present the key highlights as we move on. Rachel.
Thank you, Joel. From media to scholarship, there's been dominant narratives of negative characteristics of youth in Africa. Youth are described as lazy, troublesome, and helpless victims. So we sought to understand how the youth themselves define who is a youth in Africa and what is youthhood. So when we talked to our respondents, when we asked them who is our youth, they often defined youthhood based on age. That is the constitutional categorization of youth in their country. So depending on the country, the youth would say a youth is somebody who's between 18 to 35 or 15 to 35. But they often follow this with physical characteristics such as physical strength, agility, and energy. Some also mention that a youth is somebody who becomes responsible and independent from their parents. And some mention that once you get married, the society no longer sees you as a youth. So you even if you are 18 and you're married, you're no longer a young person because of how the society considers youthhood. And we saw that the youth define themselves in a positive way. They often describe themselves as ambitious, as people who have that can-do attitude, and they're hardworking. And you can see some of the examples of how youth describe themselves. From a young person in Nigeria, I want to say a youth is somebody that has a can-do attitude, they're ambitious, and also striving to contribute to the labor market. And a young female in Kenya actually brought this issue of youthhood ending with responsibilities that come with marriage or childbirth. So this young lady told us, when a young lady delivers, once she's called a mother, when something like youth projects comes around, they are not picked. They're excluded, saying that she's a mother, she's no more a youth. Even the men who marry early, before 35 years, they are also excluded. So that shows that youth is not just defined by age, but there are other social categorization of youthhood. So then we asked them about what they want in future. What do they aspire? And across the 7 countries, the most common aspiration was economic. Youth talked about wanting to become rich, wanting to get a good job, wanting to create a business and to own properties. And the second most common aspiration was education. Now, going back to economic aspirations, the most popular aspiration or marker of economic aspiration was getting a good job. And a good job is seen as a pathway to being rich. It's seen as a pathway to you supporting your family. So a lot of young people that we talked to mentioned getting a good job. And then, of course, we had another second marker being creating a business. And it was noted that across the 7 countries, except for Rwanda, most youth want, most young men want to become rich, and they also want to own properties. On the other hand, young women want to get a good job and they want to create a good business. Now, the creation of business depends on the locality of where these young people are. Rural youth were more likely to talk about opening an agri-based business, whereas urban youth were more likely to talk about tech-related kind of business. When it came to educational aspiration, we saw that more young women wished to get a good education or further education more than what they currently have. And we saw that rural youth were more likely to talk about getting additional training, vocational skills, while those in the urban localities were more likely to talk about getting further education in university. Now, the most peculiar thing about these education aspirations is that more East African youth wanted to get a good education compared to West African youth. In fact, as you'll see in the next slide, a young Nigerian said that going to school is a scam. So this was noted that young West Africans do not have high education aspirations, whereas young East Africans have more education aspirations. When it came to social aspirations, Senegal and Rwanda ranked high, where more youth in those 2 countries talked about wanting to start a family and to support their family. And when it came to migration aspirations, we saw that again, Rwanda ranked highly, whereas Uganda was the lowest in terms of wishing youth wishing to go abroad or to move from where they currently stay to another locality for better economic opportunities. Now, the next slide shows us examples of what the youth talked about, what they wish to have. So we see this young male person with disability in Ghana talking about wanting to become an entrepreneur. Same to the young female in Rwanda, who also said, now I am working for another person. My future aspiration is to have my salon and work for myself. Then we also saw another young person in Rwanda talking about jobs being a pathway to entrepreneurship. So they said, if I find a job in the government, I can appreciate it, but my desire in the future is to become a businessman, especially in animal pharmacy or making a regular shop. Now, this second quote is the one that I was referring to, where a Nigerian talked about education being a scam. To me, school is a scam. It just helps us to know how to write our name, to read and write. Education is just a backup. So there's that feeling that youth are not enthusiastic about education in West Africa. The next slide talks about, sorry, Elijah, I can't see the slides.
Cheers, I think I'm running into a challenge. Let me just get that back. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see the slide from here.
Okay, then I might be having the challenge. Sorry about that. Let me just look at it from my end.
I'll stop sharing and reshare.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay, so I'll just proceed. The next slide talks about the social aspiration of young people, where it was seen that in Senegal, youth ranked social aspirations highly. And a young female in Senegal told us, when you talk about success, the first thing you think of is marriage. People think it's an end in itself, having a husband, a wife, having children. Even if you're not rich, being married and having children is already a great success. So overall, of course, economic, education, and social aspirations ranked highly, whereas migration, contrary to what we have in literature on youth aspirations, it was ranked quite low among the youth that we surveyed. Joel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for the presentation. Talking about perspectives of youth on dignified and fulfilling work, we surveyed a number. Out of the survey, we got about 8 themes that youth use to define dignified and fulfilling work. The 8 themes are represented in the chart that's on the screen. And one of them that is very important for young people is good pay. A lot of the youth talked about a job that gives them a decent pay as dignified and fulfilling, and where they do not, they can independently rely on their salary and live by it. The second one is job security, which also came up as very important in the definition of dignified and fulfilling work. In this, youth refer to tenure or the ability to know that their job is secure, not to, for example, a job where they cannot just be fired any time or any moment, and a job where they can rely and live by. There's also an aspect of respect and value in which one, in the way that one accrues to the job that they do. And so most of the young people look at the work that they would look at work as dignified and fulfilling if it offers them respect. Respect in terms of the employer values the contribution that young people have to the work, and look to them as important, as contributing to the work as importantly as possible. There's also an element in which young people are talking about a sense of purpose in the way that they are fulfilling their own ambitions and their aspirations as individuals. And most of the young people that we talked about referred to a job as fulfilling if you'd give them a sense of purpose in terms of how they contribute to some things that they are passionate about and contribute to the overall development or growth in their communities, in their countries, and both also at grassroots levels. There's also an element of reputability of work. And this relates to, in terms of when we talk about the informal work, informal economy, and young people having to do some of the jobs that are not as dignified as they call them, but they're looking for work that would be reputable. People would accrue some sense of reputation and respect within their communities. There's also an element of workplace safety where young people think about work as an important, safety as an important element of their work, and they would consider work that offers them safety and security and ability to expedite their duties in a safe environment as dignified and fulfilling. We also saw from the interviews and in-depth interactions with young people how they're looking at work that is non-discriminatory, whether to their religion, to their gender or sex, and also to the other peculiarities that may bring in discrimination. And so young people spoke highly about a job that is gives them a sense of respect, of course, but also that does not discriminate them in any way. And lastly, as an aspect of dignified and fulfilling work, we saw an interest in opportunities for growth, for building their own career, and also being able to sustain themselves in the future. Some of the voices that we've captured talk about, for example, you look at a young female in Ethiopia, said that for me, dignified and fulfilling work is when you are working and the work gives you good money to cater for yourself and your family. And this relates to the aspect of salary and remuneration. And of course, this is the element of gainful employment as when we talk about labor market contribution. There's also an element of job security where a young male from Kenya says it is a secure job, one that you cannot say tomorrow you'll be fired and you don't have to go to work. So you can look at that and how they talk about them as passionate. There's also work that is respectable. A young female from Nigeria said that work that is respected, it makes you feel like you are at work. Of course, respect is very subjective and also the feelings could be subjective, but it posites that work would be more, many of the young people would be more attracted or more looking towards jobs that offers them personal respect, but also relevance within their own communities. Lastly, I want to read this quote from a young female in an FGD contribution in Kenya that says, "A dignified work is work that does not discriminate against gender, religion, tribe, or place where you are, and you also feel safe to work." These are some of the insights and lessons coming out of this work. And in understanding all that, we try to create, rather conceptualize an emerging pathway towards dignified and fulfilling work. And while we find that most of the youth are already, have acquired the right education, they have the best training, they have attended university, some have attended training in vocational schools and TVET programs, they also have across Africa a lot of talent in which, whether creative or in other innovative areas, a number of youth are also have also joined apprenticeship opportunities, and they have the right skills and capabilities to do their work. And we also see some sense of migration. Of course, while many of our participants did not think as highly as migrating from their countries to different to other countries, we also saw a sense in which youth, mainly from rural areas, desire to move to urban areas in search of employment opportunities and to build their future. And so that begins the journey or the pathway towards dignified and fulfilling work. And this altogether contributes to knowledge, skills, and experience. And with this knowledge and experience, young people do various things. And all of this, we group them together and call them hustling. Because if you walk around in Nigeria, for example, in Lagos, youth will be telling you we're just hustling. In Nairobi, they're hustling. Anywhere, in major cities across Africa. And so all of that is, encapsulated in what we refer to as hustling, doing anything and everything possible to earn a living and to survive within an informal economy. And then with that, they are seeking employment. Informal sectors, some others are choosing to go into entrepreneurship, starting their own businesses, running their own ventures, and doing all that they can to meet their goals. As enablers, young people admitted to reported putting together savings to secure their future, but also to help them offset some of the requirements that they need in accessing dignified and fulfilling work. Some have also sought mentorship from business leaders or have acquired mentors. Some also join self-help groups and also have family support. And quite a number have harnessed technology in a way that is enabling to them in acquiring the job that they have. And this explains the rise of the gig economy across Africa. In terms of barriers to achieving dignified and fulfilling work, we've seen a number of them reporting that they face financial constraints in terms of accessing funding, accessing needed capital to offset their dreams, but also to start, for example, entrepreneurship. But also there are also gender and social norms that hinder or prevent youth's effective contribution and access to dignified and fulfilling work. There are social ills such as corruption and favoritism in access to opportunities that has also featured in curtailing or hindering youth from accessing their work, dignified and fulfilling work. There's a skills mismatch in which we found, although statistics say that the population of youth in Africa are the most educated lot, there's still a skills mismatch in terms of what the industry requires versus the skills that the youth themselves have. And lastly, we've also seen inadequacy or lack of youth-centric policies that address youth challenges effectively. What we see here is more of an attempt to develop a continuum from towards dignified, fulfilling work. And so we believe that as youth are moving toward doing all they can, they are pursuing dignified and fulfilling work in every way possible. And so this becomes, an initial conceptualization of pathway towards dignified and fulfilling work. Rachel.
So we have some youth voices there. If you go back to the slide just after the dignified work, yes. So we've had youth voicing the challenges that they've experienced while trying to achieve their aspirations. We have a young female in Rwanda saying that while looking for jobs, we encounter nepotism, which acts as a barrier to achieving our desired jobs. And this was something that was mentioned across the 7 countries. The skill mismatch, a young male in Senegal talking about the training I received at university doesn't allow me to do anything at all. A student with a master or PhD degree can end up selling coffee in the street. So the government needs to prepare them better. So that's a student, a young person faulting the education system in Senegal. In the next slide, we see that young people have come up with strategies to deal with some of the challenges they come across as they try to reach their goals. And these strategies that they're talking about, they have a savings group. There's also another person who's talking about having support from their family and friends. Now, as a way to address these barriers, we recommend the following. One, enabling access to finance, because youth talked about lack of finance to start their businesses. Many of them want to start their entrepreneurship journey, but they do not have the necessary capital. So if we are able to enable their access to finance, that can be one way of helping them reach their goal. Secondly, we've noted that quite a number of these youth employment interventions often exclude the young people themselves. A young person in Uganda actually said that when the programs are taken to the villages, they find that the programs are for specific few, and youth who are actually in need of these programs end up being excluded, as you will see in the report. So we argue that we need to align these interventions to the aspirations and perspectives of dignified and fulfilling work. We also need to support skills development for those who wish to go through the entrepreneurship journey, and for those who wish to be employed, we still need to be able to help them gain the first entry into their employment or entrepreneurship journey. We also think that now that the future of work is changing to digital jobs or digital economy, we need to be able to facilitate access to technology for young people to be able to actually have these digital jobs. We are also recommending the inclusion of youth in policy making and implementation, so that the youth are invited whenever these policies are designed and when they are discussed, when they are agreed upon and implemented. We also, of course, corruption being a major problem across the continent, we need to find a way to address corruption and other social ills that hinder youth capacity to achieve their aspirations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel and Joel. Your presentation is loaded with a lot of very insightful and interesting findings. We have identified 2 questions, which I think we'll quickly talk about before we move to the panelists. The first question says, did you find a number of opportunities for dignified and fulfilling work in agriculture and the digital economy for youths? And the second one says, what are the cultural determinants of youth perspective on dignified and fulfilling work? You might want to respond to that quickly, and then we'll go to the panelists.
Thank you very much. I'll respond to the first question that talks about whether youth consider opportunities in agriculture and digital economies as dignified. Of course, the perspectives are mixed and also has contextual peculiarities across the countries. But what we see is that a number of youth are willing to contribute to participate in agriculture if it is mechanized, and also in other value chains that does not directly include production. And this is because of the high cost of engaging in agriculture at the production level, but also the fact that the agricultural sector is dominated mainly by mostly older people. And also this has also perception to it, and given that most African countries have not put up agriculture as a viable sector for most young people to participate in terms of getting, acquiring or accessing dignified and fulfilling work. In terms of digital economy and digital access, a majority actually of youth are considering opportunities in ICT as dignified and fulfilling. And this includes doing, engaging in the gig economy, but also contributing to online trading, which is also part of online business and online trading as it is, but also, harnessing the digital economy to build themselves and also to access dignified and fulfilling work. from the report, we highlight some cases where young people are engaging, in remote work, for example, that contributes to them earning decent salaries, but also where they do not have to, travel, work, or look into.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. We have to stop there. We are running out of time. Yeah, I think there are references to social cultural issues, and especially social norms regarding the gender dimension of dignified and fulfilling work. I would like to go on to call on the panelists, but before I do that, I think we should give a round of applause to the two presenters for the very succinct and clear presentation they have made so far. Thank you both. We go to the panelists. I will call first on Penina Nkandi, a young entrepreneur and advocate for people with disabilities from Uganda. She will be speaking in the panel. We also have Betsega Tadasi, young writer and voice actor from Ethiopia. She has worked as a voice artist in Ethiopia and now runs a youth-focused radio station. We also have Anna Sadiq, the Director of Policy and Thought Leadership at Mastercard Foundation, Kenya. She is in charge of the African and Global Program on Youth from Mastercard Foundation. And then last but not the least is Rafael Obonyo, a public analyst, co-founder of the Youth Congress from Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this panel, and I hope that you will bring your youthful experience to some of the questions that I'll be putting before you. Let me start with Penina. Tell us about your views on dignified and fulfilling work.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity all the way from Uganda. So as a youth born with a disability, I will not beat you my disability, but I see the ability into this. Having few challenges and barriers are there. Go to school, having 2 bachelor's degree in social work and social administration. I also have bachelor's in communication and journalism from Makerere University and St. Florence University. So, and I have a diploma in accountancy from Makerere. I feel that degrees, it's not a justified for you to have employment or to have a dignified employment. After my graduation, I got tired. I realized that it's a matter of writing applications and people don't respond to you. Join the government programs in Uganda. I appreciate my government of Uganda.
Yeah.
With those programs like the Youth Livelihood Program, where we applied for that money and then we received the money. Having received it, then we had to go into employment. But I started a platform where I discovered my thing for job. So I'm the founder of 3P's Business Professions, the makers of homemade detergents, where we make detergents. But then our detergents, they didn't take us through the taxation and also talk about UNBA satisfying of the products. So we are losing market because that is not satisfying, and satisfying the product is not affordable because the cost of satisfying it is time with the capital you have. But then persons with this, and because I've inspired a lot of youth with disabilities who look at me and they think,
yeah, I think we are having problem with the network.
It's good, but I tell them this is the way to go.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
So in
Penina.
persons with disabilities, we are doing
yeah, I think we should go to the next.
A lot skilling up. We also we make what we call community.
For our contribution. I think Microphone has been muted. So I'll call on Beseda to tell us and take us through her entrepreneurship journey.
Thank you very much.
Hello?
Yeah, please, Beseda, take the floor. I think from the technical end, we can mute Penina. Network has been very unstable.
All right. Okay. So thank you. Just to give a brief introduction, I have been working as a freelancer for the past 5 years, ever since I left university. And I decided to join the freelance lane in my career because working employed in an office setting was not did not look like it would be rewarding, financially rewarding, intellectually rewarding, even though it might have a certain kind of social status. So I didn't believe that social status was a good enough incentive to be engaged in a career path that would, demand so much out of me but not give back. So I took the freelance route, and I had been working more as with the English language. So as a voice actor, narrator, documentary writer, interpreter, and those were very rewarding financially, but I did lose out on the social status, especially when people would ask, what are you doing for a living? And I say, no, I freelance. What does that mean? I do this and I do that. And people would always say, oh, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none, And they wouldn't appreciate the fact that I had so much time freedom or even financial freedom better than my peers. People would always want to see a job title, one specific job title. But regardless, I've been working in that route. But recently I began setting up a company to, I believe, just set up a structure for the freelance jobs that I've been doing, but just to give it structure for my own self and to also give structure to other young people, skilled people who do not want to be tied down to a job, who do not want to be limited in the financial, income that they can get, but also need help in negotiating jobs and also finding different job opportunities. Because I also found that, for instance, just a good example is when I'm working as an interpreter, although I could be a skilled interpreter, because I'm young and considered an amateur, I would find people would hold back on the rate that I'm supposed to get paid. While people who are older are respected and are given the rate that is accepted on the market. But every time I would try to negotiate, companies would tell me, if you keep pushing, we'll just give the job to somebody else. Other young people like you can get paid for cheaper. So I believe that I needed a certain structure to protect my interests and also protect the interests of other freelancers. And that's what pushed me to start an entrepreneurship journey outside of the freelance career that I've pursued until now.
So what are the 3 things you can tell us that you think has helped your success in areas where you have made a mark?
Oh, okay. So I would say, well, the first one is, I just really at the end mentioned it, just the desperation of knowing that my other options are, they were not worth my time. So knowing that if I settled for the mediocre alternatives available to me, I would resent myself as well. Most people resent the country, they resent the education system, they resent their parents because they feel trapped in the situation that they're in. But I decided that I did not want to be, resentful of myself and resentful of other people. So I had to push myself to create different opportunities. And at the same time, I would say, there is so much that hasn't been done in my country. When I look to, compared to the environment that I see on the internet, when I'm watching YouTube and seeing other young people like me and the kind of opportunities they have, or the status of where they're living, and I see where we're at right now, I do see so much opportunity. And I keep thinking, man, I should be the one to start this. I should be the one to kick this off, because it's just so fertile for, there's so much we could do, specifically in terms of technology. Technology is giving us so much opportunity now. Just to give an example, I've been teaching as an English language instructor on YouTube. And that has cut back so many barriers in terms of, people don't need to go to a classroom anymore, physically transport themselves to some location to always take classes. People can, after their work hours, sit down and just watch an hour YouTube lesson and just make so much improvement. So, and YouTube is also will reward me personally as a content creator. And it also rewards the people who are looking for this service by making it easy for them. Zoom classes are also an option that are making things so easy for
Thank you very much, Sega. Thank you very much for that very insightful experience. I will call on Hannah to tell us something about what MasterCard Foundation has been doing and how these efforts translate into broader influence on youth in terms of their aspirations and then, of course, their quest for a dignified and fulfilling work.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Remy, and everyone online. It's a pleasure to be with you, and really wonderful to partner with Pascal as well on this critical agenda on how to put young people's dreams and aspirations at the center. And it's just so critical that we're coming together and reflecting on this as a community. On your question, Prof, I'll say that we are on a journey as the foundation in terms of how to take these aspirations and move it into influencing on the enabling environment. And we're continuously learning on how to do this. Many of you would know that we do a lot in the programmatic area, and we have programmatic partnerships that are centered around young people's aspirations to attain dignified and fulfilling work. We invest in young people's interest in education, in skilling. Many of you would know about the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program. I see some questions about it in the chat. That's really from listening to young people, what they're interested in doing in terms of advancing their education, but also working with young businesses, right? So the access to finance element. And in the research department, we have things like this, like the partnership with PASCAR in terms of how to do youth-led research. And we're just now moving into learning more about how we can also work with young people in the policy space. And that's really what myself is doing at the foundation together with an incredible team. And we have a new strategy at the foundation in terms of how do we work with young people's voice and agency? How do we enable that so that we have aspirations turned into policies, turned into reality, turned into changed lives? And you asked the question around how, and I think we have a running theme in this panel and this conversation today, which is around listening. It all boils down to listening to young people, listening and heeding, listening and understanding that the aspirations are diverse, they are contextual, and then partnering with young people directly. And at the foundation, we have a target of working directly with youth-led organizations. And this is something that inspires me every single day, that we have the opportunity not just work with big organizations, but also with young leaders who are really changing their communities in incredible ways. And when we think about the changes that we are hearing from young people, I really echo a lot of the things that we heard today from Joelle and from Rachel in terms of what are those critical areas of policy change, of practice change that we might want to see. And in our conversations at the foundation, we had a very interesting tour last year, a listening tour, talking to young people about what they wanted to see change when it comes to policy, when it comes to participation. And we heard a couple of things, and I'll be brief. One is that they want to be part of the conversation. And they want to be part of the conversation, not just about themselves, but about their communities and about their societies. And they're keen on education, business, livelihoods. And I think we saw the same in Pascal's research. I'll put a little asterisk on something that I found interesting, which was that young women find it more difficult to participate in the conversation and in decision-making processes. And I think that's something that we need to delve into more together as PASCAR and as MasterCard Foundation. The second thing that we heard that I think might be useful here, and it's already been said, are the critical core issue areas. One was education, and that was the most cited policy area that young people raised when we asked about employment and entrepreneurship. But it wasn't education for education's sake. It was a question about skills. It was a question about growth, how to improve your life to get to better lives and livelihoods, right? So not the certificate, and I've seen some really interesting comments in the chat also that it's about that journey and improving your own livelihood and your life and that element of growth and using education for that. The second thing around entrepreneurship, and I think that really links to the title around hustling, was that young people said to us that yes, absolutely, they're interested in going into business for themselves and for creating jobs for other young people, but they want to ensure that entrepreneurship is a good option for dignified and fulfilling work, not just for survival tactic, not just for hustling. And that means you have to work on fiscal policy. You know, what do we do in terms of giving young people tax breaks when they're just starting out? What does that look like in terms of youth-led intellectual property? That's like I hear you and you talk about, you know, voice and YouTube, etc. How do we protect young people's work in that area? And I think the last point I want to raise is the access to resources. Young people said we need to do more around capital, around land, and around information, and how to make sure that more young people can really get access to this so that they can themselves take the future in their hands. So I'll stop here and really keen to hear other reflections. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for that. Emphasizing the need to intervene, the role of policy. And I will take the question now to Raphael. How can we prioritize the needs and interests of youth in ensuring that they achieve dignified and fulfilling work? I think that's just a natural step after what Anna has said. What can we do?
Yeah. Thank you so very much, Remy. And I want to congratulate PASGA and MasterCard Foundation for this very noble, timely, and very relevant initiative or project they're involved in. And congratulations to Joel and Rachel. This is groundbreaking. Thank you so much. Just to build, I think, in terms of responding to your question, I think I'll just pick it up from where, or rather echo, or should I say identify with the comments of both Betsega, but also Hannah, but also just to add that it is very important to, one, see youth not as a problem or people with a problem, but see them as a solution. Because most of the time we approach youth as people who have a problem or people who are causing problems. And so we want to rescue them from that situation. But we don't realize that youth have certain very positive ingredients that we also need as a society, or we need to address the challenges that they are facing or we are facing as a society. So that attitude change for me is very important, even as we talk about policy. The other issue for me would be to engage the youth at each and every level. Youth are not silent recipients. They are not mere beneficiaries. So we should not wait. We should not develop products, services, or whatever we are developing, even if they are solutions, and then hand them over to youth. The modern day youth wants to be engaged at each and every level. You know, they want to also have a say. They have some level of agency. So it is important to engage the youth. And lastly is just to also build on a bit from the study. I think one of the things that is coming out is that, you know, youth have aspirations for the future, for a prosperous future. If not, they're not waiting for someone to build for them that, they're already dreaming it. And so what they're asking for is not that someone hands over that future to them. They're asking for an opportunity which could come around as a result of an enabling environment in terms of policy and regulatory framework that we create. So they're saying, look, we have this dream, we have this aspiration. We're not giving you the tough job of creating it for us. All we're asking is give us that opportunity, and we are going to create that future for ourselves. Help us with the enablers, and the enablers would be things like education. And they're saying, look, we want education that is quality and it's relevant, you know, education that can help us achieve this prosperous future that we want. Don't just give us anything. We want real enablers. And so I think it's upon, first, of course, governments that have primary responsibility of developing policies to ensure that when they are developing these policies, they listen to the youth, they engage the youth, they have the youth in the room, not outside in the room, and so that the policies that are going to be developed are going to be youth-centric, youth-focused, and they're going to truly address the needs of the youth based on the aspirations, some that are coming out from this study. Thank you, Remy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raphael. There are comments already in the Q&A, and there are also documents that have been posted online. The link you can find in the chat to the policy briefs, at least 3 policy briefs that are here, also linked to both PASGA's website and Mastercard Foundation website for further information, because there have been quite a number of inquiries. One very important question that somebody has raised, probably a comment, he said, why is it that aspiring to leadership role did not come out strongly in the responses? And I would like, probably, Raphael, you want to speak to that again before we go to someone else.
I think one of the things that youth want first, I think, is economic prosperity. Seems like that is what young people want, because I think aspiration to leadership, or rather leadership in this part of the world, I think has been viewed as a place and a space for people who have resources. And so they're saying, we want to compete in that space, but we want to come ready, we want to come armed, even though I think it is very important also to point out that youth should not abandon leadership, and that would be maybe political participation or political representation, simply because they are pursuing economic prosperity, because these two go hand in hand. In fact, they say one is an enabler of the other. So it is very important that even though it is silent in the study, I think it is very important that youth realize that unless we have a good leadership, and you see, actually they talk about it later in the study, where they're talking about, we want to fight corruption, we want to address, issues of misgovernance or misrule. And so maybe they're not aspiring to be there, but they're saying those are challenges that are denying them the opportunity to prosper economically. So I think it's more about how it is perhaps characterized or structured, but I think it is important also to encourage young people to pursue a leadership, and not just political leadership. It could be leadership at any level, it could be leadership at the community level. And we've already seen that across Africa, young people are leading outstanding, amazing, and very impactful leadership. Perhaps it is important for us to continue urging them on, or encouraging young people that, look, that is leadership too. You don't just have to run for office for us to say now you are a leader, So it is important just to encourage them in that way, and to encourage them that as you pursue economic prosperity or well-being, it is also important that you make sure that political leadership in this case is also something that you are.
Thank you, Raphael. Yeah, Penina, can you just tell us one challenge that you think is the most difficult challenge that you think people with disabilities face in their aspirations?
Okay, thank you. The most challenge is accessibility. For example, most youth with disabilities are able, but to act challenge. For example, for the sake of Uganda as a country, you find that the companies which have available jobs don't have.
Yeah. I think we get what she's saying. Companies who have opportunities that persons with disability can take advantage of don't even have facilities that will enable such people to participate in the work process.
Accessibility ground and with disability, however qualified to employ a youth. Then when it comes with a person of ear impaired or hard of ear accessibility or impaired of visual, that means instead of employing one person, you have to employ 2 people instead of employing one. So the cost of employing a youth with disability, it's the problem.
Yeah.
So that means it makes it business. So we also have issues about stigma itself. When we do ask for employment, we qualify, and even organization will call you. They will even call you for interviews. But on appearance, when you appear on the panel, they hesitate, then they're scared. Yeah. They don't give you jobs. So in that way, the solution to us, that's how we came out that self-employment is the best way for a youth or a person with disabilities in business, because you get employment, at the same time you end up employing others, and then you also employ others, even those without disability. So there is a lot of advocacy which is still needed amongst all employers and non-employers, not forgetting the families, mothers and fathers of children.
Yeah, thank you very much, Penina. I think we are coming very close.
With disability, they don't have disabilities, and this one affects the secondary disability. And another challenge is about taxation and affordability of the capital, that we cannot meet those needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope I've answered that.
Yes, you did very well. Let's go to come to the close of this panel. I thank every contributor from Penina to Beshega to Raphael, and of course to Anna Sadiq. Thank you for the very important opinion that you have voiced in this panel. It has been very enriching. So let's give them a round of applause. We have very short time to go, and I will call on Pauline once again, the Acting Executive Director of PASGA, to give us a closing remark and bring this panel, this seminar to an end.
Thank you very much, Remy. And indeed, thank you very much, everyone. It's really been an insightful afternoon. And I don't know which other time zones are represented, but really, we have heard from the youth. We have listened to the findings that our research has produced. And some of the top highlights, as I indicated, this work has really brought out distinctive insights about what youth see as dignified and fulfilling work, some of the challenges that they encounter, as well as their aspirations. And some of the things that we've been able to pick out are things to do with youth, definition about youthhood, where we have seen that apart from age, other social categorization come to play. Youth aspirations focus on economic, but also we have seen that social norms continue to emerge. We've seen that there are regional differences as well when we talk about youth aspirations. What happens in for example, East Africa is not exactly what we see in West Africa. New concepts we have seen emerge from Waithood to hustling. Hustling is a new terminology that has continued to emerge in a place like Kenya. We hear a lot about hustles. Hustles have replaced that space where youth wait for important opportunities to arise. And instead of waiting, they have moved on to hustling. Some of these are some of the resilience strategies that we have seen from our work. And of course, challenges faced by youth entrepreneurs. We've heard particularly from Penina what is happening. We've heard from our young lady from Ethiopia when she decided to be a freelancer, some of the challenges that she encountered just because she's a youth. There are many other insights that have come out, very well articulated by our two presenters. Where we are right now in the project, we are coming to the tail end. And today marks the first of a series of dissemination events. Starting from November, that is next month, to around the first quarter of next year, we will hold a series of research uptake activities, taking research back to the communities for validation and dissemination events. We encourage you to be on the lookout. We'll continue sharing notices because we want as much participation from you as possible. I want to end my remarks. I want to do that by acknowledging every one of you for all your participation. I want to note with appreciation the quite elaborate presentations that have come. We appreciate our two presenters. We appreciate our panelists, and of course, our very able moderator. And we want to also acknowledge like-minded organizations and partners that were able to join. Like I said in my opening remarks, we have built a very vibrant team of researchers from across the 7 countries, and they have become our youth aspiration and resilience research family. Without them, we wouldn't be having these research findings that we have disseminated. And they've shown a lot of dedication, they've shown a lot of commitment, and of course, high level quality in the kind of work that they have produced. We most sincerely want to thank you for your diligence. Of course, my team from PASGA, led ably by Remy and Daniel Doe, and of course, Joel and Rachel. You have really been stunning, and we want to appreciate your relentless work in making this possible. You've been the engine in the background, steering through the entire work. Last and very important, we wouldn't have come this far without the partnership and the financial support that we have enjoyed from the MasterCard Foundation fraternity. What has come out very strongly is the co-creation, the effective collaboration, and the immense support that we have received. We really want to thank you, and we want to applaud your continued support, and we look forward that to more of such engagements. So at this point, I want to draw this to a conclusion and wish you a very good time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline, for that great remark. I just want to inform attendees that we have formed a SurveyMonkey form. The link is on the chat. Please fill it for us so that we can get your perspective on this webinar, and also we can plan better for the future ones. Thank everyone for making this a great day. It's been very educative, very informative, and we hope that all the ideas will be harvested and plugged into intervention and policy initiatives. Thank you once again, everyone from the various organizations that have participated. We have over 120 people participating this afternoon. So it's been a great day, and I wish you enjoy the remaining part of the day.